So in this video, I'm going to be transitioning from the concept of space-time and how space-time and time as we know it is a relative experience from individual to individual. I'm going to be moving towards time as far as we understand it and how it plays a role in mythologies and beliefs around the world and throughout time. So one of the easiest ways to kind of look at different cycles of time is like consider it gears of a larger machine. We have certain revolutions, certain rotations, certain orbits that all work together to create one kind of harmonious component piece. And so, the one that we know is, if we have a day as a unit, then we have 7 days in a week, 30, give or take, in a month, and then a year, so on and so forth. And what we're going to be looking at now is the calendar that deals with ages, like ages of the zodiac, the concept of the great year, or otherwise known as the precession of the equinox, otherwise known as the Yuga cycle, and essentially dive into one of the beliefs that builds most of all. I would say astrology has roots in most, if not all, worldwide religions and beliefs. It's the most consistent thing we always are looking up, and they don't change as much as Earth and humans might. So what I'm going to talk about, we'll talk about the Great Year. And it has a bunch of other names because it's in a bunch of other beliefs. But the amount of time is just under 26,000 years. It's either 960 or 980. I'll write 960, but... And so what does this unit represent? How do we know when one great year is over and another one begins? So, as we know, Earth in space, if this is due north and due south, or like we rotate on an axis. This axis is 23.335 degrees. And so as the Earth turns, so as we turn clockwise, we revolve and revolve and revolve, and we spin and spin and spin. But just because we're spinning around at a rate doesn't mean that our axis spins at the same rate. So you kind of got to think of it like a little toy top. I actually made this dumb little thing, but if you imagine this to be our planet, if it was straight up and down, it would be like this. Is the shadow good enough? And maybe I can just hold it closer. So if it was straight up and down, oh, look how scientific it is. Close enough. So if you hold it up and down, that would change the perception of time, the measurement of one great year. What happens and how we measure it is we have an axis, or I'll tilt it this way. We have an axis of 23.335 degrees. And so let's imagine that this is turning. Just because Earth's 24 hours is constantly going and constantly going, it doesn't necessarily mean that this is whirling with it. As Earth goes faster and faster and faster, the axis, the tip of the axis, if you imagine like an ongoing point, a ray or a laser, it will move so much slower than Earth's rotation. And so if we have a 23.333, degree axis, and we measure it from this point, so right here, it takes 25,960 years for the laser point to come back to the same point. So right there is already, if you weren't familiar with that concept, it's already a little bit weird. I know that the wobble of the top is a little bit tricky, but so from there, we can kind of jump to astrology. And I made this other really stupid little tool. And this represents the same kind of thing that I was just talking about. So as Earth rotates and revolves, our position on Earth in observation of the star constellations we call zodiac is more or less consistent. We are traveling through space, but they're always there. And as we turn on Earth, we might be turning clockwise. Like as we rotate, imagine the small circle turning clockwise. And so this is the bigger sphere, and it's spinning fast. It's spinning 24 hours a day. So imagine this being Earth. And if we have a laser pointer on top of that axis, that laser pointer is going to be spinning counterclockwise. So why is that important? So as we progress through our year, we go through our seasons, generally month by month, season by season, and that's one cycle of a year. So a great year is broken down into zodiacal months or ages. So we have the age of Aquarius that we're either technically in or about to be in, depending on who you're looking at. Age of Pisces was the one before that. The age of Pisces, the most commonly known avatar or icon that represents the age of Pisces is Christ. He's not the only one, but if you think of the walking on water and making the many fish out of the one, Pisces is linked directly to Christ as well as some other figures. And before that was Aries, I believe. I better be right. Yeah, sorry. And the one of the main religious icons of that time was Mithras or Mithraism, and Aries was a sign of Mithras and Mithraism. So I can't say that much about the rest of the ages because I don't personally know, but it's interesting to think about why this concept has survived so many generations and so many civilizations. So we're going to look at some of the numbers behind it. Why it makes it a lot easier for me to like comprehend and chew on the information if I have something that's concrete. I'm definitely not someone who jumped into astrology head first. I was very skeptical, but then I forget who said this, I'm sorry, but someone said that astrology was based on observation and correlation alone, and it's been used for thousands of years with either the zodiacal system that we use or one similar that works in a similar process of years of time. And so we're going to talk about the numbers. So we'll talk about the numbers. I'll write bigger because I know these are a little bit small. So we're going to start. This is the Earth's axis. This right here, this would be the center point. This is where our axis is. So this distance right here, 23.335 degrees, meaning the entire diameter of the axis's point is just about 47 degrees. So we just talked about having the great year or zodiacal year or the Yuga cycle or the precession of the equinoxes. Just about 26,000 years. And so what segments come after that, the zodiacal month, or otherwise known as the age that I was just talking about, is 2,160 years. And obviously, or maybe not so obviously, I'm sorry, that's this number divided by 12, just like our month. So zodiacal year divided by 12, zodiacal month. What gets a little bit interesting after that is, so if we were to divide this by 30 for a theoretical zodiacal day, we would get 72 years is one zodiacal day. So we have the year, the month, and the day, which is kind of interesting because although life expectancy is an average that changes throughout generations, it is pretty close to one lifetime. So I found that interesting. So another interesting layer to these numbers, this is just one example, but Falconelli is an alchemist and a writer and scientist and all this stuff, long dead. But there's a book that he wrote about the language of numbers and language of architecture. And at one point, he references this number of this angle. So if we have the middle line of where Earth's axis is set from, he considers this and says it looks like the number 7, which in some systems of numerology are associated with like rebirth or annihilation, or like a phoenix rising after being destroyed. For the same reason, he also says that it looks like a scythe. There's a passage about his theory of the age of iron, which is our age, being tested anew by fire, and our moniker being that of death, the Grim Reaper with the scythe and the hourglass. But we'll get into that. He has a really interesting doomsday theory, and I really like it. But I wanted to touch a more general. I'm definitely going to go back into it, but I just wanted to get a general idea out before I jump into detailed doomsday stuff. So why am I talking about this? Why do I worry about it, bring it up, or consider it significant for occult or mystic teachings? Time is something that is a huge influence on our lives, and the way that we measure it and the way that we experience it has been consistent with the cycles and ways that we break down time throughout human history. For that reason, it also permeates into how we tell our myths, our folklore, our stories that help us become better. And so when we look at like the 12 signs and the fact that they have characteristics, we can kind of compare it to, so we have the zodiacal signs, or zodiac, I'll just call it zodiac. And it can be compared to and tied to similar systems that categorize traits and expectations of a person or of a character or of an archetype. So we have the zodiac. We also have the major arcana, or the entire tarot really, but I'll limit it to the major arcana for now, which is 22 cards. We have 22 of Jung's archetypes. And then comparatively, this isn't so much, actually, yeah, it is. The Hero's Journey, developed by Joseph Campbell, involves steps and characters that will come into an adventure or a passage or a journey or anything that an individual needs to get through, whether it's an experience that lasts a week or it's like a journey like Lord of the Rings. The hero's journey is a way to break down those events. And it also incorporates traits and personality types that you would run into while pursuing this goal. So I think it's 12. Yeah, I think it's 12 steps, which ties to the zodiac. So why does it matter? Again, why am I bringing this up? The concept is, with a lot of occult teaching and a lot of mystic teaching and all of this stuff involving magic, involving the study of shape and symbols, for the most part, what I study and what I plan on showing everyone for as best as I can is that this stuff is mostly trying to send the message of you have the opportunity to better yourself no matter who you are. No matter how shitty your life is, there are options to observe your life and change it. How does that tie into astrology? The way that we transition through different stations or seasons or periods of time that are measured by a certain symbol, a certain set of traits or behaviors that might be more relevant. This is my speculation, but I believe that there's obviously stuff we can't all see and explain. And the same way that I think before we knew what germs were, if we were hanging out in a dirty area and we got sick, we'd be like, oh my God, I must have pissed off God and he got me sick. And then we found out that we couldn't see something, but it was definitely affecting us. I think that the same concept works for this sort of thing, where if we are floating through space in our solar system and all that stuff, and we are endlessly floating through clouds of mixed radioactive waves and gases and clouds of matter and all that stuff, I really believe that the stuff that we cannot see and the stuff that we cannot yet explain with science does play a part in how we behave during those locations. And so I think astrology is a consistent way to measure those changes in where we are in relation to where our planet is. Is this proven? Is this, backed up by thousands of research documents? Fuck no. Nope. I like speculating, and I encourage you to do the same. But it's a core part of every sacred teaching, every secret teaching, every mystery school, is you have to make yourself a better person. And these passages of time, these cycles of times, can be perceived and broken down into opportunities to face certain obstacles at certain times and therefore move on from them. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye.